I'm a knitwear and crochet designer of many, many years experience. I'm also a pattern maker, an author, a mentor. And for my sins, I teach people face-to-face to hand knit and crochet at a college in South London. Lots of diversity, whatever. And I have to say, one of the references I use, because I teach a very, very diverse, culturally diverse cohort of students, I reference Laduma's work. And today, his talk and seeing his work, the whole body of his work, was such a privilege. So I really thank you for including him. And I don't know how to follow all this. It's been extraordinary. But anyway, so what I'm going to talk about is, as I said, I teach people and I write patterns. I work with some very, very big labels. And I also work with people who are becoming established in the fashion business. It's hard. It's really, really tough out there. Even for the big labels, there have been lots of that have fallen by the wayside recently, which is astonishing. But, you know, things are tough out there. So the people I teach, I do teach them how to darn, to repurpose their sweaters. I teach them how to design their own patterns. What else? I teach them to be original. I teach them to come up with their own ideas. And I do teach them to knit. I teach them to knit well. I teach them how to crochet well. I teach them to be proud of their work, to share it, and to work in communities. Hand knitting and crochet is such a community. And I could do a whole 20-minute, 2-hour talk just about mental health and mindfulness and whatever like that. But what I'm going to concentrate mostly on is open source patterns. So first of all, what is an open source pattern? Most knitting patterns that are put out there, and I do have students that I've taught to write patterns who've now gone on to become designers, and they actually make a living out of selling their patterns for money, obviously online, and it's very, very skilled. It's very technical. There's a lot of knowledge there. So for somebody to pay, that's great. That really is, and especially if somebody can make a living. Some of these people have changed careers. Some have children, and it's a great way for them to work from home. Yeah. Some just want to do it because they want to make their own designs for friends and family or for themselves. Fantastic. What I have to say is a lot of the fashion colleges, unless it's somewhere like Nottingham Trent or whatever, which is a specialist textile and knit college, a lot of the fashion colleges don't always teach knit these days. So I do end up sometimes teaching people who have graduated with degrees in fashion. And then when it comes to knit, which is an important, again, quoting Laduma, it is one of the most important areas of fashion at the moment. Knit is amazing and very, very diverse. A lot of students come out and they've spent 3-4 years doing a fashion degree, and they have maybe not at all or hardly touched on knit. So I often will sometimes get students that have their degrees and they want to spread their wares, sort of thing, to get themselves a job. But basically, an open source pattern is where a designer has actually given up the copyright on their original work, and the pattern is offered free for somebody normally to download and then to share, probably adapt and make their own, possibly in their own yarn that they've unraveled. It could be unraveling from another sweater. I encourage my students to do things like that. There are websites out there that offer free patterns. I don't actually look at them because I write my own patterns, but I do say to my students, if a website's offering a free pattern, make sure that it is original work and not something that they've copied from somebody else and then just giving away free. That's not fair. But I'm going to make a really big statement now. Philip started on it. It wasn't 30, 40,000, it was millions. So 3 years ago, during the pandemic, I was part of millions. Somebody did quote recently 15 million downloads, but JW Anderson weren't able to verify that, and that's an awful lot. But anyway, millions of downloads from a pattern that I wrote on behalf of JW Anderson. And it was for a cardigan that was originally designed for their spring 2020 menswear collection, which was actually designed the year before because we always work quite far ahead. And it was actually shown as part of their Paris show. The cardigan retailed for $1,560 US. So in British pounds, that's £1,250. It sold out. Now, I couldn't afford that. And for a lot of people, it's completely unreachable. But what it does do, though, is represent the amount of work that goes into something that is handmade and made in very, very good quality fibres. So these weren't things that were being mass produced on computerized machines. These were actually hand knitted jackets. So it does represent the amount of work that's there. But then I'm going to show you, hopefully this will work. I'm normally used to presenting face-to-face at conferences, not online. So let's make sure, let's hope this works. Hang on a minute, share. Ooh. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Let's go back. You're going to have to, oh no, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, I'm not very good at this at all. Where do I go? Oh, sorry. I'm just going to carry on talking. This pattern, this sweater became really, really famous because it was worn by a certain pop star called Harry Styles, who you may have heard of. And he wore it when he was rehearsing for The Late Show, which I think, I've never watched it, but I think it's an American TV show in America, and I think huge ratings. And that was in February 2020. So it was, way after the show. So it was when these garments were going into the shops. He wore this sweater as a rehearsal. The sweater, the whole thing was organised by his stylist called Harry Lambert, who'd been styling Harry Styles for a few years. Well, I'm going to get confused with all these Harrys, I do apologise. And Harry Lambert put Harry Styles in a pair of Gucci jeans, some trainers. So this is the man. And this is the image that came from that rehearsal that he did for the show. So what happened is apparently I have read an interview with the stylist, Harry Lambert, who actually said when he turned up with this cardigan and jeans and whatever, I think Harry Styles was a little bit, really? Is that not a little bit too kind of casual looking? And Harry Lambert, who is an incredible stylist, he was just like, trust me, I know what I'm doing. And never was a truer word said, because the next thing, it was hashtag Harry Styles cardigan, and it went viral worldwide. What happened next was this thing called TikTok, which I didn't really know much about. Somebody went on TikTok and started making the cardigan just from using this image, and kind of made a sort of semblance of this cardigan and started sharing it, and literally kicked off this this huge revolution of sort of knitting again. Online searches within that month of the Late Show rehearsal, patchwork, crochet, knitted searches went up by about 80%. You know, it was just huge. So this cardigan, as I said, came from the collection that was the spring 2020 collection. Now, what I have to say is I did not design this cardigan. In fact, I didn't design any of this style that was in the 2020 collection. Right, I'm going to attempt to go down. Oh, here we go. What I worked on were these full-length crochet dresses that were done by hand. So there's a pink one and a yellow one, yeah, which I was really proud of, especially as they actually came out at the end of the show on models. So at the end of the runway show, if you've ever seen one online or actually had been to one, you have all the models that parade at the end, and then right at the very end, the designer will come out and do a little salute or a bow and then disappear again. These two dresses came out just before Jonathan Anderson came out to do his bow. And I was watching it online. Sadly, I have actually been to a J.W. Anderson show, but I generally don't get tickets. They are for the good and great of the fashionistas or whatever, not for the likes of the people that do all the work. But never mind. So I was really pleased because traditionally at the end of the fashion show, you would have the wedding dress that would come out. So these were the last two dresses. So I was like, yes, I got the wedding dresses. So I was really, really sad that Harry Lambert didn't take one of my dresses to be worn by Harry Styles, because my goodness, that would have caused a stir, especially as I think since then Harry has been photographed in quite a few dresses. But that was it. I was very pleased, and these dresses did actually go into production. And when J.W. Anderson opened their first shop in Soho in London, these dresses were actually in the collection and in the retailing. Considerably less money than the big cardigan. So what happened next? We then went into lockdown. Knitting was starting, and a lot of crafts actually were starting to really take off. And I think I'd just finished working on the next collection for J.W. Anderson, and I got a call from one of the knit developers saying, "Oh, Ruth, you make knit patterns, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah, where's this going?" And she went, "Well," she said, "Jonathan wants a knitting pattern made of the patchwork cardigan. Would you be able to do it really quickly?" And I was like, "Oh, it's lockdown and whatever like that, but you know, I'll give it a go." So she said it was the one that was worn by Harry Styles. She said, "We've actually got the jacket, so I can send it over to you, and then you can work from that." So after I came off the phone, I thought, right, I'll have a look at this online and see what's involved. So I went back to this show. Let's see if I can scroll down. This is not, oh, here we go. And that was the image from the show. this amazing cardigan that Harry Styles wore in the show, it was basically just worn as a shawl. So it's a good job they were going to send me back the actual cardigan, because no way could I have made a knitting pattern from that anyway. So short while later, a bang on my door, and a delivery driver waved at me from the end of my path, full mask. I put a mask on, and he left this huge box by my gate. And then I thought, wow, if they sent me all the yarn, I hope they're not expecting me to knit this, you know. And so I dragged this box inside, and this enormous sweater came out of it. And of course, it was the one that was worn by Harry. So I thought, oh, this is an opportunity. So before I started doing the pattern, of course, I had to do some selfies, put the sweater on, selfies, whatever like that. Then I put it on my daughter to photograph it, because it was too heavy to put on a dress stand, and it was so big. I never worked on the sweater design at all, so I had no notes, I had no tension, I had no idea of the yarns until I'd actually seen it. So so I put it on my daughter so I could photograph it around, and then I kind of realised that I knew it was going to be clever because I know the team at JW Anderson. But I then realised that actually each of these coloured squares represents a stitch. So I set about and I made up diagrams, charts of how these stitches would work in colour block, and then went from there. So I then realised that they weren't made in individual squares; they were actually made in strips. And it was actually made in pieces that could all be sewn together. So I thought, well, this is actually brilliant for a beginner to work on, because you're going through all the basic stitches, casting on, knit stitch, which then produces a garter stitch fabric, bringing in a purl stitch. So you're doing knit and purl in the same row. So you've got your moss stitches, your ribs, and then going right through to your stranded colour work. So I then had to decide, right, how am I going to write this so it's going to be easy for somebody? And I was suspecting a lot of beginners were going to have to go with this. So but the main problem I had was there were no shops open. There was nowhere to run off to and get some yarn, because the yarn that the sweater was made in, those yarns were actually wound for JW Anderson, so they weren't commercially available. So I had to then find yarns that I could then recommend for the garment. Fortunately, because I do so much work, I keep all my leftovers, and I normally would make my leftovers into Ferrars or Intarsia or whatever like that, using them up. But I had a big box of chunky yarn. So I was able to just trial up the and get the right tension. Unfortunately, I'm just by chance, I managed to do it really, really quickly. So I had the thickness of the yarn, and so basically I produced the pattern, it sent it off to JW Anderson, it got released as a press release by Jonathan Anderson, and I know within a couple of hours of the press release it had already downloaded 4,000 copies. Now I was told that it's now 15 million. But what I just want to say is what I'm really proud about is that it's basically instilled the art of make into so many people that had never, ever attempted to knit before or to crochet before. And then after the finished garments, I was getting so many sent to me on social media and I know Jonathan Anderson was as well, and he very kindly set up a gallery, which I know was a real honour for those that he chose to show their work. So my big statement is I got 15 million people worldwide knitting again, and there you go. Anyway, thank you very much for having me, and good luck with the rest of it.